Hello again. I hope you enjoyed the previous session from Monica. If you missed it, you can watch the recording, but do not go anywhere for now. As creative operations professionals, process is at the heart of all we do. And we secretly all love a good process. But how do you spark creativity through the process? I have the pleasure of introducing you to Samit Malkani, who is the Group Marketing Creative Manager for Brand, India and Southeast Asia, who is going to be talking you through sparking creativity, the process. Please also remember, put your questions in the chat at any point in the Q&A section, and we'll answer your questions at the end of the session. Over to you, Samit.
Thanks, Amanda. And hi, everyone. Really good to be here and speaking with all of you. So I've spent about 11 years on the advertising agency side, and I've spent 9 years at Google on the brand side since then. And in those 20 years, there's one fundamental thing that I have learned, which is you aren't really a marketer unless you have said, I just want 3 things from my agencies: great work, faster, and cheaper. And traditionally in advertising on the agency side, we used to say, hey, you know what, you'll get 2 out of the 3. But at Google, I think we've all kind of grown up with this idea of challenging the status quo and really looking to achieve what people believe is impossible. And so we set out to say, can we actually address all 3? For years now, we've been hearing from our marketing teams that we've had issues across all 3 areas. None of this feedback will be strange to many of you. We hear that agencies need to present more radical ideas and go really beyond the videos and the films. We've heard about rounds of creative review at the client side, watering down the work and making it less risk-averse, less innovative. We've heard about clients seeking more diversity within agency teams, and not just about gender or race or religion, but also in terms of skill sets. We hear about the need for more operational rigor on the agency side. We constantly hear from our marketers that executing creative is really challenging and has led to burnout in many cases. We've heard about agency processes and internal layers slowing down execution. And we keep hearing about how we're still seeing the same traditional advertising-led approach and the same traditional advertising-minded people in a world that is rapidly changing. Finally, we keep hearing, it feels like we're paying a premium, but are we getting the value from our partners that we should? Now, it's easy to think of each of these as separate things that you need to solve one at a time. But our aha moment was actually that these aren't separate issues, but they're actually interconnected ones. And I'll take a few minutes to explain what I mean here. Let's take operational rigor. Operational rigor is something that connects back very strongly to agency processes and layers and what they need to go through internally to build the work that a client buys and releases. It connects very strongly to the pain and of going through the creative development process and has an impact on well-being. It also has a connection back to fees and structures. And every client believes that operational rigor should be part of what you are paying for. Coming to, for example, diversity within agency teams. And when you solve for that, you're actually solving for multiple things. You're not just solving for diversity, which leads to hopefully diverse work, but you're also hopefully bringing in skill sets which allow our agency teams to go beyond traditional approaches and film executions and develop more radical ideas. I'm going to connect dots between, radical ideas that go beyond film executions and connecting back to rounds of reviews that water down the work. And you can see how these two actually connect and are part of the same puzzle. So that's how we've started looking at it here at Google. And that was our aha moment. We can't solve them all individually. What we need to do is address them as a larger puzzle and think more holistically. The approach we have developed here is something that we call creative transformation. And this is an approach where we actually are going to be more focused. We're going to drop a bunch of things that we have been trying in the past and replace them with new ones or drop them entirely. We're going to think more holistically to solve all three pieces of the puzzle with the end goal of saying we want our marketing teams to be able to do better work. We want them to be able to do it with far less friction. And we want them to do it at a fair cost. There are three pieces to this, like I said. And the first is the work that we do around our agencies. We've invested over the years a huge amount of time in, bringing our agencies along the journey with us. It goes beyond just briefing them on the plans for the year, but we invest in training our agencies and partnering them in building strong and robust feedback processes. And that is one key area to work on. The other area is spend transformation. The needs that we had 9 years ago when I joined Google were very different from the needs that we have today. And our agency structures, our agency fee structures need to reflect that change. Finally, there's the process side of things, where one of our realizations is that different people approach creative differently, and agencies have to struggle to adapt to different teams working on briefs. Google is like a cluster of businesses, and each marketing team tends to have a slightly different approach to developing creative work. And this is something that we need to get better at and address. But that's what we have in mind as a holistic program. But today I'm going to spend time focusing on the single biggest pain point that we have had. I've spoken to you about the pain that marketers feel in getting work out of the door. And the toughest part of that process has been in getting creative work approved. Now, Google, like many other large organizations, is a matrixed organization. And the journey of a creative idea in a matrixed organization, as many of you will know, is far from simple. It's a bit of a train wreck sometimes. Typically, what happens is that a working group wants to make sure that the work that they're taking up to their stakeholders is incredible. And you can't blame them. They want to put their best foot forward. They want to show that they're capable of doing amazing things on their own. They'll go up after several rounds of work, several weeks of work, often present work to their leader, who may not yet be the CMO for that country or that business. Their leader might actually ask for more rework. After that leader is satisfied, it may go up to the CMO for review, and there may be more rounds of rework there. Now, alongside the CMO, you'll find in a matrix organization that apart from a country team who's actually doing the work, there are regional teams involved, and there are global teams involved, and then there are cross-functional teams involved that we have to take along the journey. And suddenly, from being, a very simple process, this has become a really complex process, because at every step of the work, you want to make sure that you are listening. You want to make sure that you are taking feedback that is valuable and helpful, that you are incorporating different perspectives, diverse perspectives, making sure that the work, at the very least, doesn't hurt the brand that you have worked so hard to build over the years. And that makes creative development and creative approval in a matrix organization pretty much a train wreck. We've all heard the phrases creative by committee. I think we're all equally guilty of it. Everyone, the other phrase that I used to keep hearing when I was on the agency side was everyone wants to be a creative director. The truth is everyone wants to build the brand, and everyone is going to share their opinions to do so. And that has the potential to really confuse and confound and complicate what should be a really simple process. Some of the things that we heard from our agencies and our marketers on the creative approval journey was, one, we were seeing inconsistent briefs. We were literally, I sit on the creative review panels for my regions, and I have lost track of the number of times I've sent back creative work because there was an issue I found with the brief. The second is too many stakeholders, and often these are unexpected. I've been through a recent one myself where somebody unexpected in another part of the organization decided to weigh in on a piece of work. The reasoning was correct, the intent was positive, but the end impact was complexity and swirl. Lack of access to key stakeholders is often an issue. To get time with people, or for an agency team to get direct access, or even a Google team, a marketing team to get access to a senior stakeholder can be challenging. We've all heard this, we've all been through it, we've all been guilty of it in many cases. We tend to change our briefs or our expectations midway through the process. Scope creep. Feedback. Many a time, it feels like we don't actually know how to give the right kind of feedback, that we can be overly prescriptive, that we can deliver feedback in a manner that leads to work that doesn't challenge the status quo. High risk aversion is one of the pieces of feedback that we have got. Too many rounds watering down the work. I've spoken about this before. Cannot get enough review time with a highly stretched CMO. And all of these things are just add up and make this a really challenging process that nobody looks forward to. Too many foreign stakeholders. So we spent a lot of time, several months actually, doing a huge amount of deep discovery and thinking and brainstorming and solutioning. And we devised a set of principles and solutions to help solve this. And I share this with you, not to say that this is the perfect way to do it. This is the way that seems to be working for us at the moment. And hopefully this will inspire you to make some changes or give you some ideas if you're thinking about this at your organization. One, we decided to classify our campaigns into 2 tiers. Not every piece of creative work needs the same level of scrutiny and attention. There are some pieces that can just move much quicker through the chain because they may be an adaptation. They may just take the same campaign forward with a different visual or piece of copy, and or they may not have significant spend behind them, or they may not be like highly sensitive, high priority, high visibility, high impact kind of a campaign. We decided to focus our CMO's time and attention on tier 1 work only, and that freed up bandwidth. Suddenly, we had enough slots open for creative review for folks to come in and come back repeatedly if they needed to. So because we really kind of narrowed her attention on the tier 1 work. And we created secondary review forums for tier 2. The next thing that we did was work really hard to tailor the process and the principles for every different product area and every different kind of campaign. Now, one of the things we've realized is that different PAs at Google are set up differently. And there are differing levels of involvement from regional and global teams. So therefore, we realized it's not a one-size-fits-all situation. It's a situation where we need to adapt key principles to each PAs. And so we did that work. We literally went across a dozen teams, understood their processes, understood what they needed from their side and their interests, and figured out ways to solve for that. One of the big changes that we made was we brought matrix stakeholders, regional and global stakeholders, or cross-functional stakeholders that mattered, into the same forum to save time and to improve our outcomes. What was happening earlier was teams representing 2 country creative panels and getting some opinions, and then they would go to a regional panel and give a completely contrasting opinion. What we did was we brought the country CMO and the regional CMO together into the same room at the same time, and that led to better conversations and clearer alignment and clearer feedback. A significant shift that we made, and we've been, I think, and corporate man up and say, I think we've been lax on this front, is we have not been reviewing work early enough and at foundational phases. So one of the gates that we have introduced is a brief review. We've now had the opportunity to review several briefs under this new process. We've had the opportunity to tear up some of them and challenge teams to start from scratch. And that has led us to better work. And that has actually, it might seem that the teams are investing an additional week of time in getting the brief right, but that's saving them 3 or 4 weeks of time had they brought the work to us further downstream. Another area was, at times it's very easy to pin the blame on an agency for not getting the feedback, but we have to be honest with ourselves. Are we doing the best job we can of capturing feedback? One area that we sought to work on was making sure that there is a one single document where all feedback on creative is captured. And that allows creative reviewers to go back in case there's been, a goof up, in case something has gone wrong. We can actually look back. We can look and identify and say, this is where things went wrong, or this was where the feedback that we gave you was not captured well enough or communicated well enough. And that has been helpful. We've also clarified next steps at every stage of work with a simple traffic light system. Red means go back, start from scratch, and we'll see you again soon. Yellow means make some changes. You can email us because we know that these are not significant in most cases, and you can move forward. Green says you can move forward to the next phase in the creative development journey, and that clarity has helped our marketers. The last thing is that we have tried to make feedback on the process an always on process. So we're constantly talking to our marketers and asking for inputs on how we can make this process even better. I'll speed up a bit. I know I'm kind of getting close to time, but one of our biggest learnings through this journey, while we've introduced principles and solutions, is that what is needed is clear operationalization. A process is no good unless it is very, very clearly operationalized and people are incentivized to follow it. Our key North Stars were execution and well-being. We wanted to get better at execution. We wanted to improve our execution scores significantly. And these scores refer to feedback surveys, to internal feedback surveys that we run with our teams. The second North Star was well-being. We're very clear that we don't want to be burning out our teams through the journey. The impact on people is meaningful and visible when things are, when processes are broken, and we wanted to fix that. And that's what we set out as our North Stars and what we were trying to solve for. We spent a lot of time aligning with cross-functional, cross-product area, regional and global stakeholders to make sure that the process was capturing all nuances and not just leading with the country marketing perspective. We had some really difficult conversations with some of these stakeholders. We wanted to be clear on roles and responsibilities and who decision makers really are. And in most cases, where we fell out was the country marketing manager is the one who will take the final decision. Other folks are marked as people who are giving input or are just notified that there is work going on. And we had some tough shots, but we've gotten to a better place. Like I said, we sought feedback from a wide range of stakeholders, but also built out very clear, exhaustive process decks. The slide deck that covers the new creative review process is something like 20 odd slides. And it sounds like a lot, but every slide is designed to explain and to educate and clarify and simplify. And that has landed really well. We have been timely and thoughtful in our communications. We've tried to consistently reinforce why we're doing this, what we expect the outcome will be. We've welcomed feedback. We have also not just stopped at one communication, but we're trying to repeat this over and over again and refresh people and remind people constantly to use the new process. We've been humbled to say that we don't believe we have solved this entirely. So we're going to treat this as a pilot. So for the first quarter, which was Q4 of last year, we ran a pilot. We learned, we iterated, we made changes midway through the pilot. And now we're ready, we believe, to say that this is a launched process. We may iterate and find better solutions over time, but for now, we're happy with where we have landed. We've run detailed trainings. We've had teams who've led this process go out there at team meetings, at small group meetings, one-on-one, help people understand how this process is due to work. And folks from my team who have built this process are always available to help. The feedback that we've gotten suggests that the work has been useful. To a large degree, a lot of this has been about clarifying who stakeholders are and who needs to sign off. And that itself has saved folks time, energy, anxiety, and there's more that we can do to streamline. I'm pretty confident about that. I know that we have to probably reduce the number of stakeholders who look at work further. And we know that we have to build out a much larger creative development playbook that trains our marketers at Google on how to execute the creative journey from start to end. But that's a project that we have just recently started on and started making progress on. So I'm going to save that story for another time. That's all I have to share today. Thank you for listening, and I'm happy to take any questions that you might have.
Thank you very much, Samit. That was a very insightful presentation. I'm sure that a lot of people in the audience listened with empathy at the beginning of the presentation about wanting it quicker, wanting it cheaper, but wanting it best quality. My VP said to me once that he wants it better, cheaper, and he wants it tomorrow. So I know that that's going to hit home for a lot of people. Unfortunately, yes, some of the sound was a little bit, in fact, we were talking about Star Wars earlier, and some of the sound is a little bit Dalek-like. So I think we've been infiltrated with some technical gremlins. But I do have some questions for you. So sorry to the audience about the technical difficulties. Lots of questions, in fact. Gosh, I don't know where to start. Let's start with, this is a very good question, and if you can answer it, I will be very impressed. So how do you balance getting the right amount of voices involved in creation and approval to avoid having too many cooks involved?
It is a great question, and I won't say that we found the perfect answer. What I will say is that we're trying to clarify who is responsible for owning the work and taking accountability for the work that goes out in a particular market. And that person is therefore our key approver. My brand team serves as panelists, advisors, and reviewers for all work that goes out. And we see that as critical input, critical input to our CMO who's making the final decision. We do seek other perspectives more to make sure that we are not doing anything that is putting the brand at risk, or striking the wrong tone. So we seek diverse perspectives from cross-functional teams, and these could include our PR teams, our government affairs and policy teams. It could include legal for sure. So we treat those as inputs to help shape the work. But we're trying really hard to keep the number of people who are providing critical input to a minimum, and just centralize decision making with the CMO or one person as far as possible. I don't think we're there yet. I think we have some steps to go, but we've made some significant progress.
And how do you manage that from an exec point of view? I guess you can't, can you? Because and if an exec has an opinion upon a piece of creative, then they're going to give it, and you're going to have to answer that. I did actually like the way you positively put a spin on the everybody wants to be a creative director, because I hear it all the time. But with you saying no, everybody just wants to make the most of the brand and to protect the brand. That's such a positive, beautifully positive way to reframe that. I am going to go back to some questions. I was going to ask you a question of my own, but I won't be selfish. I will ask the audience questions. You gave a great insight to internal organizations and collaborative approval. Do you think the processes and workflows result in diluted creative ideas?
They can, if you have the wrong people in the room, and if you have poorly trained people in the room. I do think that the folks who should be offering critical input on creative work should have a very strong and very rich background in developing creative work. And that can be built over the years. So it's not something that everyone's born with, right? But we do need to make sure that we have the right people in the room. the more and more rounds we do, the work does tend to get watered down. I've seen it myself. And then it takes a strong voice to actually advocate for that work. So one of the things that we want to do is make sure that um, there is, for example, a brand marketer who is trying to support each of our key campaigns and advocate for it, and make sure that it is not getting watered down through multiple rounds of review. And we are beginning to ask ourselves tougher questions. So even if we're in the second round review and some feedback has been addressed, we are becoming more open to challenge and saying, do you think you've actually made it better, or have you watered it down?
Yeah.
We were in a review just yesterday, and we had a very frank discussion to say, maybe you should not have taken that feedback. We want to empower our teams and agencies as well to say, hey, you know what, we tried, it doesn't work because, and that should become acceptable. So we are on that journey, is what I would say, Amanda.
And gosh, so interesting, because one of your solutions was to collaborate more frequently with the marketing team. And but a lot of creatives, they like spending that time to sort of cook their ideas and then present that ta-da moment. So how do you deal with creatives when you're introducing so many different tissue meetings more frequently with the marketing to bring them along on that journey? I don't think we can't hear you anymore, Samit. And of course, I'm just going to say to the audience, yes, we can hear you now. Any of the questions that have been asked in the Q&A session, we will send to Samit and provide the answers at a later stage as well.
So I was saying, Amanda, it's an art, it's not a science. What's worked for me is to go in with very clear expectations of what I want to get out of that tissue session. I'd rather go into a tissue session saying, I know the work that's going to be shown to me is half-baked, but I'm here to tell you what is not going to work and try and help you build on what is going to work. So we've tried over the years to foster a very, very collaborative and partnership-driven approach, where we give teams a time, but we don't want them to go away for 2 weeks and just brainstorm and get it completely wrong. We want to help them get to the answer faster. It just works for everyone. And our agency partners have been really responsive. It wouldn't work without them.
Yeah. And you only work with agencies, is that right?
We do have a couple of in-house creative teams that we do partner with on occasion. But they're smaller teams, right? So the larger chunk of our work is done by external partners.
So with the internal teams and the external teams, how do you facilitate that multi-layered approval process that you spoke of as one of the solutions that you're trialing?
The principles remain the same. We want work in early to the CMO group for tier 1 work, right at the beginning, at foundational phases. And then we want people to come back to us with the first round of everything. We're actually okay if they say, you know what, we have seen the work, we have some feedback, we're reserving our feedback till we have this broader discussion so we can consolidate. And we're trying to encourage that, so that our agencies don't have to go and do multiple rounds, but we can have a discussion altogether and get to clear feedback. And that's how we're approaching it. The big change, which maybe I should have mentioned, is we're trying very hard to clarify who our decision makers are at the very start of a project. And we put this down on paper in our project plan. And once that is decided, that's locked in stone. And then we can go up and we can say, hey, you know what, you're an input, so I appreciate your input. I'm not going to take all of it. Or I'm not going to take any of it because it doesn't work, or because our CMO believes otherwise, and the CMO is the decision maker. And this is a globally driven approach as well. So it's not unique to our team to clarify decision making, but we've leaned on that.
And with your global regional, again, I work in a matrix organization, and the gel that brings them together. Do you also include global stakeholders and regional stakeholders in that review process?
It varies from business to business, and within that, sometimes it can vary campaign to campaign. There are some campaigns, for example, on a particular business area where the VP who leads that business, marketing for that business, has said, I want to sign off on everything. She's the global VP. But there are some pieces that she's happy to leave to the APAC CMO of that business to take a call on. So there is variance there. And that is what I was referring to when I said we had to tailor this process, these principles per organization. It's not a one size fits all.
Yeah, you're right. I think I'll start. I'll end with a final question from Jackie. How much education or how much focus have you had to invest in getting the creative brief and the process right?
It's been significant. We've been trying to get creative briefs better and right for as long as I have been here. I will say that, again, we're on a journey. I think we need to invest more in training our marketers. Not everyone comes from a campaign marketing background. We need to, when it comes to the creative process, it's only recently that we started spending time. And I will say that we've spent about the last 6 odd months getting this absolutely right to a point where we're happy to have launched it and we're seeing the benefits of it. I still think that we have more time to invest and more effort to put in. So like I said, I think, I work at a software company. We tend to iterate and make things better. So we're going to do that with this process as well. Perfect.
That was a wonderful ending. That is absolutely phenomenal. I wonder if I can squeeze in one more question.
Sure.
I don't think I can actually. I'm being told that I'm running out of time. So thank you so much, Samit. Thank you, audience, for all of your questions. Appreciate your time. And I look forward to speaking with you soon, Samit, and seeing the audience at the next session. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you, folks. Bye.
Bye-bye.